Hey guys, what's up? My name's Ines. I write kissing books, and welcome back to my Preptober event where we are going to sit down and get our best plan for the binge-worthy book that we're going to write for this Nano. We're preparing for our success for November's Nano now by doing all the prep work. The first thing that we did is we did market research by data mining the bestseller charts. If you missed that, make sure to go and look at that video before we get to today, which is we start to look at the big picture. Now, as storytellers, Aristotle taught us that every good story has three parts: a beginning, a middle, and an end. If you miss one of those, then people are going to leave unsatisfied. Aristotle saw that if a story had a middle and an end, people would leave questioning, well, how did they get there? Whereas if they had a beginning and a middle, but no ending, people would leave dissatisfied, thinking they wasted their time because they didn't have any type of closure. We're not going to do that. Before we sit down and start to plot bit by bit by bit, we are first going to make sure that we understand what our story looks like from a high level view. So for our beginning, we want to look at the setup. And the purpose of the setup is to quickly establish everything that the audience or reader needs to know in order to step into the ordinary world of the main characters. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you hook them by showing the extraordinary situation or the extraordinary qualities of your main characters. And finally, in that setup, you want to show the characters' want or their need. There's a difference, and we'll talk about that. You want to show them the goal. You want to show the reader the goal that your heroes plan to achieve by the end of the story. It's a lot of work, but we're not done. Act 2 is all about the confrontations. Once the audience or reader knows what it is that your main characters want, then you, as their creator, you've got to toss in a bunch of obstacles in their way before they can even hope to get it. The amount and the difficulty of the obstacles depend upon the length of the story. If you're writing short, one obstacle might be enough. If you're writing a 500-page book, then you're probably going to have to sit down and think about a lot of obstacles. In the middle of the story, the hero and or heroine will confront these obstacles, all to test their skill and their resolve of trying to get their goal. They're going to face false victories, they're going to face setbacks, and they're likely going to have to regroup once or twice before they advance towards claiming their goal. Then, because we know we don't want to have anybody leave unsatisfied, we're going to resolve the story. Because facing these obstacles is going to change your main characters. They're going to grow, they're going to learn valuable lessons. They could fail and they could doubt themselves too. That is a perfectly great route for you to put them on. But in any case, 2/3 or so into the story, your main characters are going to confront their most arduous task, like the biggest obstacle that you can have them face. This is what we often call the dark moment. The outcome of this final obstacle will resolve the goal set up in the beginning. Either they're going to achieve their goal or they're not going to achieve their goal. But the readers are going to know, and that's how things are going to be solved. If you're writing a series of connected stories, it might happen that your hero or heroine doesn't achieve their goal and they have to try again in a new book. Excellent. If you're writing a standalone romance, your hero and heroine or any combination therein have to achieve a happily ever after or you will be burned on a pyre. But you can still play around with this resolution with a cool TV trick called the open door. Because even though the goal has to be resolved, either they get it or they don't, you can pull more strings and leave them dangling until you get to the next book. Now, in my Patient or Pacing course, I break this down act by act, step by step. Now, enrollment in Patient or Pacing is perpetually open. If you want to grab a seat in this life-changing class, you can go on over to ineswrites.com/PTP for Patient or Pacing. In the meantime, let's take a look at the 3 acts of the book that I'm prepping to write for this November's Nano. If you remember from the market research data mining video, I'm working on a contemporary romance with a military hero set in a small town. And there's a bit of fairy tale retelling in it because it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which is a great trope. There's also an interracial, multicultural relationship happening because my heroine is African American. In the setup of Beautiful Beast, this is what I've got so far. My hero, Adam Best, who everyone calls Beast. Adam and the rest of his unit were in an IED blast, and Adam suffered scars on his face and scars on his body, which has made him pretty self-conscious. Adam resides in Grim Valley with the rest of his unit, and these soldiers are all trying to recover from their last deployment when that blast happened. Adam has a deep love for classic literature, and he dreams of a career amidst books, but he grapples with the opportunity to ghostwrite a general story. This is my idea so far. Beatrix Lestrange, who everyone calls Trix, is a fierce lover of romance novels. Don't know where I got that from. She is a collector of rare editions, especially featuring Black leads, and she's driven by the dream of creating the world's largest archive of Black romance. Beast and Trix have already clashed over their opposing views on literature, but their friend Rosie from previous books, who is also a tarot card reader, Rosie predicts that Beast and Trix are meant for each other, and both Beast and Trix are like, hell no. Despite their differences, both Beast and Trix constantly find themselves in passionate rendezvous amongst the library stacks, because I write steamy. My adhesion point is that they become tasked with reorganizing the town library, and this shared mission forces them together. They're going to both fight for their genres to shine. Remember, Beast likes classic literature, and Trix loves romance. In Act 2, this is where we face the confrontations. I have some ideas that, and again, these are still kind of vague. I'm working along with you guys as I'm plotting this book out. I know I want them to be at literary events like book auctions and literary festivals and book swaps. Everything to deal with books I put in there as a potential confrontation, as a potential obstacle for these two to interact around. It's going to provide moments for them to debate their love of literature and their differences in the literature that they consume. I know that Trix's goal of establishing her romance archive is going to run into barriers, but Beast is going to support her every step of the way, revealing layers to her that she hadn't seen, because Trix is just there for the hookup. She knows that her best friend Rosie says that she's going to end up with Beast, but she's like, no, I'm just here for the wham bam, thank you, ma'am, and I'm going to go back to my boyfriends and books. But Beast is really well for her, and he starts to let his guard down, and he shows her. I know there's going to be a scene where he shows her his scars, and he's going to think she's going to react with revulsion, but she doesn't. I know that there's going to be a potential funder that's going to show interest in a story that Beast wants to write. But this is going to, I think this funder is going to be the same person that Trix was after to fund her archive. But Beast is going to get the opportunity at the cost of Trix's dreams. This is going to put a lot of tension on their burgeoning relationship. As part of the resolution, I'm thinking, I guess because of the weather events we've been having this year, I decided to throw a storm in there. There's going to be a massive storm that threatens Grim Valley, and it's going to particularly threaten the archives that they've been working on. I want Trix's book collection to be in peril, along with the literary books that Beast has collected. But Beast is going to go for her books instead of worrying about his classics. I'm not sure about this part where Trix acknowledges the depth and beauty in classic literature, because that's something that I struggle with. But I do know that Beast is going to use the things that he's learned from her about romance and integrate that craft in what the ghostwriting that he's doing. And I think instead of being the ghostwriter for a general, I think instead he's going to want to tell the stories of how his friends are healing. That's where I am right now. You see, I'm changing it right while it's on the paper right there. But that's where I am so far. And I want you guys to do the same. What is the setup of your story? And you can just bullet point this. I get really persnickety when I'm writing incomplete sentences and trying to make them pretty. Bullet point it. What are some of the confrontations that you can think that these characters are going to face? And how do you think that you're going to resolve it? And for me, the resolution that I put on the page is rarely the resolution that actually happens, because I learned so much about the characters as I'm drafting and then revising and then polishing my words, that the resolution changes a lot. And it comes from the evolution of who I thought these characters were in my brain, and then who they actually are on the page. So those are your marching orders. Come back with those 3 acts, just bulleted out. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the beats, and particularly the beats of romance, because I write kissing books. If you want a sneak peek at the the beats of romance, you can go to ineswrites.com/romance map to download my romance novel success map, which we're going to go through in our next talk. And I'll see you then. Bye.